All right, what's up, everybody? Just waiting for the attendees to drop in here. I know there's a bunch of people in the waiting room and they're still dropping in, so we'll give it 30 seconds here and then we'll get rocking and rolling. Thanks for jumping on. All right, starting to slow down a little bit, so we'll get this thing started. And Les, I'm going to kick it over to you pretty quick, just to set the format real quick. Again, thanks everybody for joining. Obviously, we're going to be diving deep today with Les. I know everybody's excited for this, and he's going to be talking some output. He's going to be talking some stuff that he's doing for the combine, and I know I'm excited to hear it. So we're going to let Les take you through his presentation and where his focus is at, and then we'll transition to Q&A. So as Les is going through his stuff, feel free to just drop questions in the Q&A box, and then we'll hit as many of those as we can at the end. And Les, I know you probably have a ton to unpack, so without further ado, we'll dive straight into it.
All right, let's do it. How do I share my screen?
I just unshared mine, so you should be able to share on your side now.
Oh, 1 second. Oh, there it is. Sharing not turned on.
I just allowed it. Hold on. There you go. Try again. Got it.
Okay, cool. So I'll go through the presentation first, and then we'll do questions second. It might be a little loud in here. I'm at the Olympic Training Center. We just got off the field, so how is the audio here?
It's really not bad, Les. There's a tiny bit of background noise, but I can't really hear it that much on my side.
Okay, cool. All right, so the main purpose here is to maximize the NFL Combine performance while also improving the health of the athlete. So we're not doing either one in isolation. So while we want to improve performance, it can't come at the cost of health. So a lot of what I'm going to present on is seeing where they're at from a performance standpoint, but also from a health standpoint. And we decide from there what takes the priority, what takes the need. So here's our entire process. So the first 3 weeks are intro. Week 0 is the week that most people arrive, but there's not much training that week. It's kind of like intake, things like that. Week 1 and week 2 are really setting the stage for the entire process, kind of like our GPP process. Longer warm-ups, more volume, less intensity. We're building in the weight room. The next block is in our load. So weeks 3, 4, and 5, we're stepping up on our volume and intensity each week until we reach a peak point on week 5. It's our hardest period. It's our time where guys aren't running the fastest. It's very difficult. Training is very difficult these couple of weeks. Then we go to transition. So after week 5 into week 6, we run our mock combine on week 6. So basically, we allow them to unload the first half of the week, and then the second half of the week is really geared towards the mock combine. So we just had that week last week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were all prep. Friday was like a walkthrough, and then Saturday was a mock combine. Week 7 is kind of the opposite of that week. So week 7 in transition is the beginning of the week is heavy. Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday is heavy, and then it's a 3-day off period, and then we go into combine week. So combine week, they get there Monday, they run on Friday or Saturday, and it's really just a normal training week. Like we're in the hallways, we're in the weight room, we're still doing all the things. There's just not as much of a like volume to it. The intensity is still there. So 2 components I'll go through today. This first is profiling, second is monitoring. In our profiling model, there's 3 levels. The first is structure. So structure is the things that you can't necessarily change, even though you can, but like your femur length, your tibia length, your body weight, your body fat, And we go into even deeper. So hip internal rotation, external rotation, hip extension, those things. It's more of like how you're built, how you're anatomically built. We will make changes to it. It just won't be as drastic as what you would think. Then you have physical. So physical is like how much force you can produce in a mid thigh pull, your counter movement jump, your RSI, asymmetries, those things. Then you have technical. So technical is the tip of it. It's kind of what everyone focuses on is like the technique, how somebody runs. For us, it's the smallest thing. Like how somebody runs is really determined in our opinion from the structure and the physical. So just to go a little bit deeper into that. So what we're looking at in profiling is seeing if physical things will impact the technical things. So is it a technical or physical problem? But do we have the prerequisites to run fast? So at the base of that, thank you. At the base of that, we have our structure, so medical screening, body measurements. In the middle, we have in the red, we have our physical profiling, unilateral strength, reactive strength, max strength, power. At the top, you have some of the more sprint related things, technical related things. So a couple of things like before I get into like the meat and potatoes of this, is we use the output on the field, we use it in the weight room, we use it everywhere. So like this is this kid's first day, he just finished playing in the championship, and he's here and he's getting assessed like the first day on the field. It was super easy. I think we're doing a internal rotation test here, doing a hip flexion test here.
Did you want to start that? We're going to meet with Steve first on the preset and then.
Is it cool? I'm gonna take this. Yeah. We're good. All right. I didn't know we were having a meeting. My bad.
Just straight to business today.
Keep your foot over right here. Nope. Sleep left leg, and you're gonna point down. Spark.
Yeah.
Right leg. My serious. Alaska. Alaska. I mean,
She's going to talk positive.
Ready?
So measuring plantar flexion, and then we'll measure dorsiflexion the same way. Okay, and then we get into the strength in the weight room.
Tight grip push. Rack that. How much is it?
So here measuring bar speed.
165. 151. Good.
Okay, some more testing. All right, so then we get into this. So here's everything. So your anthropometric stuff, so height, weight, femur, tibia, body fat. All right, then we have our mobility. So ankle dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. We have hip extension and hip flexion. We have hip internal rotation and external rotation. Those are all output tests. Okay, then on the physical side of hamstring, force plate, reactive strength, ankle, hip, and knee isos, right? Then we have our speed, so 5'10" fly, our 30-yard, load velocity. The final two are technical. Then we have our combine stuff. So basically what we're doing from here is we're determining, is it a structural or physical or technical need for the athlete? Then what we do is we plug them into our sheet, and we have normative ranges for everybody. Blacked out their names, but essentially from here, what we're doing is we're normalizing all the scores to a STEN score. So it's, if you have a Z score, you can make a STEN score, which is just converting it to a score out of 10. And basically the score out of 10, hold on one second. Hey, can y'all meet a little bit further down? Because I'm on a webinar right now. Sorry about that. I normalized it to a score out of 10, 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. And basically anything that's like below a 5 is not good. So in this case, anything that's orange is not very good. Yellow is right in the mix. But anything that's red is a major concern. So if you take an athlete like this, you'll see a guy in there that has really bad body fat, really bad hip internal rotation. Those become his focuses. What is he good at? He's good at hip extension. All right. So we find the things that he's good at, find things he's not good at, and we'll really work on the pieces that he's not good at, in this case, on the structure side. On the physical side, it's a little bit different. So sometimes people are really bad at things, but that's because they're really good at other things. So there's a guy in here that has really good breaking rate of force development on the force plate, and he's got a terrible hip ISO. He's just really reactive. So yeah, we're still going to work on his hip strength and his hip extension strength, but a lot of our energy will be focused more kind of towards his strengths on this side. And we'll see if some of the structural things will help him improve. From a speed testing standpoint, first thing we're doing is a 30-yard sprint. So what we're looking on the 30-yard sprint is to project out of 40. And in the beginning, we don't have, we could run a 40, but we don't really have like a safety net for them. Like I'd rather them have a couple weeks of training under their belt, but I also don't want to wait a couple weeks. So the 30-yard sprint gives us enough information to project out what their 40 would be. Then we go to load velocity profiling. So load velocity, so we pick 4 different loads and we draw a linear trend between the load and the velocity relationship. And we're able to target training loads for the rest of the training block. Super easy to do. And then we have individual loads for each guy for the rest of the training. The SMAS is the sprint movement assessment score. So it just tells us, is there a high risk for this athlete to run fast from a hamstring perspective or adductor, hip flexor perspective? Like, is it unhealthy for him to do top speed early on in the training? And the last one is motion IQ. So motion IQ is a quadrant system based around step length and step rate, and also air time and ground time. So you're able to draw a quadrant with, you know, what kind of running signature that athlete has. I mean, each quadrant has a specific area that like would basically lead to certain injuries. So if you're quadrant 3, it's more hip based. I'll come back to this in a second, but quadrant 1 is more ankle and Achilles based. So we can group these athletes and find out like what are their potential risks based on their running technique. This is how I do the estimation for the 40, from the 20-30 fly. So if I have the 10, the 20, and the 20 to 30, we know pretty much what people run if they have a 20 to 30 at that speed. So we guess that the 30 to 40. You can see the column to the right there. It says like negative 0.06. Most people that run a 0.92 run a 0.86 in the 30 to 40. So yeah, we're just kind of predicting out what that would be. And then we estimate a 3 to 5% improvement for combine. And we estimate a 1 to 2% improvement for mock combine. This year we beat the mock combine by like 3.5%. That was weird, but typically it's like 1 to 2%. So then we have this. So once we've done all their work and we know what their what their structure is, what their physical is. We then look at, okay, are you on pace? So your 0 to 10 is on pace for a 4.55. You want to run a 4.3. Okay, well, we know that's good. Not good. Your 10 to 20 is at a 4.9. That's really bad. 20 to 30 is at a 4.8. So we know that which split is probably your weakest and where you might need the work. And then we do a pretest 40 estimation, best, average, and worst. And then off the average, you predict 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% improvement. So what is a 5% improvement if you ran a 4.66? That's a 4.43. Happens all the time, right? So a lot of our guys now like are looking at 1 to 2% from mock combine to combine. So that would be like a 4.46 person running a 4.38. It's a big jump, but it's possible. For every training session, we have our targets. So what we'll do is we'll look at, okay, you're running the 10 today. You want to run a 4.3. Your target needs to be 1.52. All right. So we go into that training session. We meet with all the athletes. We talk through it. And then what we do from the health side is we try to look and see, are these athletes green, yellow, or red? So based around their risk profile that we created, we decide, does this athlete need different things in the pre-session to account for some of the risks that are potentially going to happen here? All right, so if somebody has poor hip internal rotation, then in the warm-up, we're going to put more internal rotation exercises, right? But they also might be red based around their lack of hip internal rotation and pain or soreness in there as well. Load velocity profiling, we do it with 3 different loads, 5, 10, 15 kgs. And then we've picked different training loads this year. So 10% VDEC being our speed focused, 10 to 20 being our power focused, and 20% being our strength focused. We didn't really go to 50% this year, and I can explain if you guys have questions on that. This is our SMAS testing. So it's 12 questions. Chris Brahman created this one. And these 12 questions, we're trying to see, is there lumbopelvic control? Do they have poor backside mechanics? And do they overstride? If they do those things, it's probably a risk. If they don't do those things, they're probably okay. Quadrants. So we have 4 quadrants here. We have the bound, the drive, the spin, and the bounce. Guys that are bounders have longer step lengths and longer flight times, typically have more Achilles calf issues, foot issues. The drivers have longer steps and longer contacts. They have some hip issues, adductor issues, those types of things. The spinners are high rate and short flight time. They typically have hip issues. And the bouncers are high rate, short contact. So very high stride rate, very short contact. They have foot issues. I've seen knee issues in that. So we can kind of predict and see where those athletes might have some type of injuries. And then the other thing is like we can look at their Z scores. So the further outside the norm they are, the more risk they are. So if you're at 1.5 plus or minus the standard deviation, the Z score, so you're probably more at risk. The closer you are to the middle, the less risk you're at. And then we come to this. So we're trying to find, is their strategy problematic or not? So we've collected all the information. We know, okay, he's poor internal rotation, he's poor hip extension, but does it show up when they run? So in this case, we have an athlete that pushes fast, he spins really fast, he's high frequency, but he has a very problematic, nearly problematic stride pattern. So on the contact time, the flight time bias, he's more biased towards contact time, doesn't have a lot of flight time, and he's way more biased towards step rate. So he's very step rate dominant. And the more like assisted running and things we do, the higher that rate dominance becomes sometimes. He does have like little issues, but he's actually been okay. Okay, monitoring. So on the monitoring side, we're trying to maximize the readiness to perform each day. So readiness is at the top of this pyramid. It's today. Preparedness is like over time, our readiness, like are we trending in the right direction? Preparation is just the work that we do to get there. So what we're trying to do is balance out this. So our external response is a positive training outcome. We have training stress, then we have stress experience from that external load, and that equals our training load. From our training load, we have an internal response to that. So it's a reaction adaptation to that load. And then we have our training outcome. So a positive training outcome means that we've reacted positively to that entire training load. So our internal response is positive, and then we have a positive external response. So this is just viewed through the supercompensation lens. We have the training stress, we have the recovery from that stress, and we have the positive training outcome. Okay, so at the top left, this is like combine. It's almost 2 peaks. So we have initial performance. We actually make them worse for a couple of weeks and stress them. Then we rebound for a mock combine. Then we stress them again, and then we rebound again for combine. Okay, on the right would be ideal. You just get better every single week. It just doesn't happen like that. But if we had a longer run up, we probably could. At the bottom left and bottom right, you have non-optimal and overtraining. So non-optimal is too much time between training sessions where you're not getting enough rebound effect. And overtraining is just too many sessions with too high of intensity, back to back to back. From a dosage standpoint, level 3 is what everyone kind of understands, which is GPS. So we know from GPS what they're running, how fast they're running. Level 2 is internal load, so it's heart rate or RPE. We don't do too much heart rate stuff, but we do RP. So how hard was the session? And if you don't have that, you could just count time or reps or plays, and that you'll pretty much get the same thing. So our external load, we're using GPS. So we get volume, which is general volume without magnitude. We got intensity, which could be mechanical or neuromuscular. Mechanical is more accel, decel, neuromuscular is more high speed. We have density, which is volume or intensity divided by time, and we have performance. So daily, we're looking at these things and how we're responding to these things. On our dose model, our volume is distance greater than walking, and then it's time. Our intensity is we have 6 different speed zones. We have low intensity, moderate, high, maximal, and then we have number of accels, number of decels. There's 6 metrics in there. So 4 of them are speed related and 2 of them are mechanical related. The speed metrics are all weighted. So the maximal sprint speed, which is 95% or above, is weighted 4 times. So if you have 10 yards of maximal sprint speed, it counts as 40. If you have high intensity speed, 88 to 95, and you have 10 yards, it counts as 30. At moderate, 78 to 88, and you have 10 yards, it counts as 20. And low intensity would count as 1. So that helps me weight the actual intensity of the session. Then we have density, so distance per minute, accel per minute, decel per minute. So we end up with this. This is daily from a training perspective. This was like a dribble, easy dribble day. And from here, we have our distance max speed, percent max speed, accel, decel, our speed zones, and we have volume, intensity, and training load. So volume is basically a little algorithm that we put together, which was weighting, time, and distance. And then intensity is another algorithm that's weighted based on speed zones, accels, and decels. So you can have high intensity from high accels. You can have high intensity from high speed zones. And we got our max speeds at the bottom, percentage of max speed. Then we got our speed zones. So we're trying to contextualize this stress. What we're trying to find out, is it far away from what their norm is? So if it's 2 standard deviations away from the norm, that's a meaningful change. That's big. If it's 1 to 2, then it's potentially meaningful, but doesn't always mean they'll respond poorly. And if it's +1, -1, it's pretty average. Okay, on the response side, we have 3 levels. So 1 is just a questionnaire, a conversation with the athlete. So how you feeling? Fill out this questionnaire, those types of things. Level 2 is more internal response. So that's HRV, your resting heart rate. When I had the flu this week, my HRV was very low. Resting heart rate was very high. I was responding poorly to training stress. Level 3 is neuromuscular. So that's force plates, that's NordBoard, that's VBT on output. For us, it was mostly force plates and output. So on the output, what we do is if you did a jump, a barbell, empty barbell jump, every single training session that you started, or you just did a CMJ, then weekly you can draw a trend line and see how they're responding to training stress. Is that jump getting higher? Is it getting faster? Those types of things. I see a lot of people use different modalities here, but easiest one for us has just been throw an empty barbell on, do a jump squat, or just do a CMJ. And you could just monitor that week to week and see how they're responding. All right, that's it.
Cool. Drop some questions in the chat. I saw only one question came in while Les was rocking. We got straight into it, Les, because I knew you were going to have a ton to hit on. And I know that you could go deeper on any one of those pieces. So
yeah, I'm in it now. So
yeah, if you want to start with, there is one question in the chat from Ted. I don't know. Can you see those on your side, Les?
I don't think so.
One question in the Q&A. Okay, cool. So we'll tackle this one, but please, anybody else drop questions, and otherwise.
Oh yeah, I got it. Is structure and physical Z-score separated out by positions? It is. It's separated out by There one level is that output has a bunch of normative data on a lot of this, so you could use that. Or we have enough data on enough people to know what's good or not per position. If you don't have enough position players to do that, that wouldn't do it. I would just do like your whole team. Or but if you can do position, then yeah, I would. You could chop it up however you want in terms of position. What would your typical weight training versus run sessions per week? Okay, so we had 3 run sessions, 3 weight sessions per week, lower body. So the 3 runs are early excel, so the beginning of a run and working on starts. The second day is max velocity. The third day is late excel, it's working on transition. So in the weight room, it's more concentric strength and concentric power, and bilateral strength on Monday, on the first day. And it's a little bit heavier on the loads. On Wednesday, it's more unilateral strength and eccentric stress. So we've been doing like lunge Hatfields and things like that, transitioning to bilateral and faster. And then on Friday, it was more of like special strength. So we've been doing more hip extension work. We've been doing heavy step ups, those types of things. Tristan said, when using force plates for testing, what metrics do you look for to correlate with speed? Well, jump momentum is always going to correlate with getting faster. So the higher you're jumping, the faster you're jumping at your specific body weight, it's usually going to correlate to running faster. Now there's pieces of that. So jumping faster also has an effect on it, but jumping faster has an effect on jumping higher as well. So what we look for is how fast somebody jumps and how high they jump. So you can look at modified RSI, is an easy one, but that's the basics of it. Breaking rate of force development gets better with better contact times and those types of things. But yeah. Adam said, what does weight room work shift to during the 8 to 10 day taper leading up to combine day? You just work backwards. So 10 days out is the last heavy lower body session. And then you just work towards like maintenance from there. So we know the residual effects of maximal strength is 30 days. So you draw the combine date and then you draw back 30 days. That's the last 0.5, 0.6 on the output, right? It's not as heavy anymore. You're working 0.7s, working 0.8s. This week we're working 1.0s, 1.1s, 1.2s on the bar. So we're working fast. So we work faster towards that end of the continuum. Now, the thing is, when they get to indie, we do have a weight room, but it's not like great. So we actually don't lift too much. We do a little bit of maintenance stuff, a little bit of activation, potentiation, kettlebell swings, and goblet squats and basic things, but nothing too crazy. David said, what would the usual difference be between bigs and skills? I have no context to that, to be honest. So just type me like what you mean exactly. Using force decks, have you used other metrics like peak power per body weight? Yeah, I have, but peak power per body weight is going to be very heavily correlated to jump height. So I'll just pick an easier one. Is your RSI metric position specific? I mean, everything's technically position specific, everything, because you're comparing your group to whatever group that, like, it. If I have a DB, I'm comparing him to DBs pretty much. But all skill guys are pretty close, so it's, if you don't have enough DBs, it's fine. But linemen, obviously, are completely different. And I also don't really care, to be honest, where they're at. Like, in the grand scheme of things, I care about where they're at compared to each other. That's it. Like, I mean, basically to themselves. Like, I want to see, like, all right, if Tommy jumped 24 inches on Monday and 24 inches on Tuesday and 24 inches on Thursday, and then he jumped 21 inches the next Monday, well, I'm comparing him to his best. And that's where the Z scoring comes in, because I want to see where he's at compared to his best and what he normally jumps, pretty much. Does that make sense? Do you represent or do you implement restorative training principles and sessions, in some cases very individually driven? Yeah, restorative is every day. You have to balance out the work. So we have PT twice a week, we have massage once a week, we have recovery 5 times a week. So sauna, ice tub, stretching, all those things are built in weekly.
Les, that question in there from David, O-line versus D-line, or O-line, D-line versus wide receivers, that's in reference to the question earlier David was asking about. I'm finding it. What would be, he said the original question was, what would be the usual difference between bigs and skills? And then you asked for more context. He's saying O-line, D-line versus wide receiver, for example, but I'm still not sure if that's enough context for you to answer.
I don't understand. Like, what test, for example?
We'll see if he drops more in there.
All right, so when you see a poor readiness score, how do you manipulate the training session? So this is what happens almost on a daily basis. There's red, yellow, green. Let me see if I can pull this up, actually. Share my screen. I'm not supposed to be showing this, but I'm gonna do it. Fuck it.
If you guys ask the right questions, you'll get less to show stuff he's not supposed to show.
Okay, let me go back a couple of days. Okay, so this is our wellness questionnaire report. So we have sleep quality, energy, fatigue, stress, readiness. Then that'll create a score. And we have pain and soreness levels from there. So we have a score and we have criteria. So if it hits below like a 70% on their wellness, then there's like a chain of events that happens from there. So the first thing is a conversation. It's like, okay, did you really sleep 1 hour? Okay, cool, you did. Okay, 2, are you really tired or are you just saying that? You're actually tired. Okay, are you actually stressed? And then that'll lead us to making them yellow or red. So green is a normal training session. Yellow is modified. So yellow just means like we're modifying a part of the training session, either the volume or intensity. So volume would just mean time. intensity would mean the fast stuff. So sometimes we pull people out of reps, and some people we cut people's session short. If it's red, that means you're just in therapy, basically. Like you're not training, you're just doing the therapy. Nobody's been red ever in our training. So it's all been greens and yellows, pretty much. We also have the same for RPEs. So based on our training sessions, we have gym and field, average RPEs throughout the week. You can see that we started off pretty high in the gym, pretty low in the field. And then you see the field start to take more. The gym held on, and then we dropped everything. So, yep. I hope that answers that. What else we got?
Did you get that one from Miles, Les?
Oh, in the grand scheme of things, how much data do you give to your athletes? What do you give instantly? Not much. Not. Only thing we give them is live, how fast they're running, their split times, their counter movement jumps, and their VBT data. So how fast they're moving the bar. That's it. Besides that, none of this gets shown to them. They just train. Ted said, does any anthro-fib dictate how you view SMAS emotional IQ? Yeah, it does. It's structural. So somebody with longer femurs and longer tibias is going to run completely different. So, but that's accounted for in motion IQ, to be honest. So because the leg length is factored into the stride length. It's part of the equation. When running a combine prep program with relatively low manpower, what would be your lowest hanging fruits for the assessment performance monitoring components? Personally, I would do the hip internal and external rotation, hip flexion and extension, counter movement jump, and 10-5 RSI. And then how fast they are. And that's it. It's pretty much all you need. Does your combine protocol focus mainly on the 40 or other parts? We do everything. I mean, interview prep, psychological prep, future girlfriend prep, all of it. So 5-10-5 is easy though. Like I remember in 2022, I was teaching the guys at the combine right before they did it, and they all PR'd and were top 5%. It's not hard. It's an easy test. I think people spend too much time on it for sure. You don't need 8 weeks to prep 5-10-5. I'm sorry. You don't. You really don't. Run it once or twice a week for 8 weeks and you're good.
Les, while we wait for more questions to come in here, I have an interesting question from the outside looking in. Like, I think this is the stuff people get excited about these webinars. Like, as I talk with coaches out on the, like, this is the stuff, it's the highest level, right? So this is what everybody wants to hear about, what's happening at the highest levels. But when it comes to tools like output specifically, like, how do you think about at what level of coaching different technologies and tools start to come into play? Like, at what level would you say a coach should look at something like an output or something like Vauld laser timing or something, just any of the different technology that you're using? Like, how do you think about stacking those?
Yeah, I think it's almost because you you don't know what to fix. You don't know what to fix without having that information. You know what I mean? So like if an athlete has poor hip internal rotation, they're not going to get good extension. If you can't get good extension, they can't be fast. So I'm just having you run into an injury, or I'm having you run just to run. Like I need to find out what exactly I need to influence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So you would say like any coach that's trying to help an athlete get faster should have some way to collect this data, even if it's a less, hardware driven process.
100%.
They should be looking at these metrics to make sure, even if they're youth athletes, right, that they make sure they're not running them into an injury.
Yeah, 100%. I would say probably high school, for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Looks like Miles dropped another question, which is a good one too. I like that question.
1 second. Jamil, can you grab Mike from Athlete Check-in? McCartney. Okay, Miles. I can't see it.
He just asked, what's the hardest part of this process for you?
Fuck. I mean, right now, we're about to go to Indy, and I just had 16 missed calls on my phone while I did this webinar from agents. It's nuts. We leave tomorrow. It's nuts. Yeah, I think that's the hardest part. I mean, the training's easy. It's everything outside of training. It's the people, it's relationships, it's the differences in people, you know.
Les, if you can hear me, I think we lost you. Okay, I'm 99% sure that's not my connection. I'm sure I'll get reconnected in just a second here. We can keep it going. Feel free to keep dropping questions in the chat. I know Les is just dealing with the training center Wi-Fi, so I'm sure I'll be back in a minute.
Hey. All right.
I got
Back.
you.
Okay. All right. I can't see any other questions on here. Sam. What's up, Mike? I need 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay, Miles, for the most part, do you get guys at week 0 that's more prepared than others? So how's the next 2 weeks look for them? No, because I had 5 guys from Oregon, so they went till January 20th. And then I had 1 guy from Texas, so he's January 20th. Then I had Alabama. I mean, guys were coming in late January, so everybody missed week 0 except 1 guy that was at Virginia. He's running the fastest too. He's had the best peak and taper and all that stuff. It's kind of all over the place. Yeah.
Cool. There were some questions that came in while you weren't on, Les, that you might not be able to see. Matt West. Yeah, the recording will go out to everybody. We'll get it out after the webinar. Can you see that one from Zach, Les?
I just see one from Sam.
Okay, so Zach asked, what would be your preferred way of doing resisted sprinting if you don't have access to higher end items like a 1080 or a run rocket?
I mean, we use hills in the beginning. We have a 1080. We just use the hill just because the hills, like, I didn't need to track speed on it. To be honest, I just need the stimulus. Then you could use sleds. We use chains in 2022, only chains, and just track the speed with GPS or timing gates. Yeah, I think you could use a ton of different things, but the speed for sure is the most important thing. So how fast they're running with that load. The modality is not that important.
Cool. Carlos, this is the last one before Sam that you can't see. Carlos asks, has it happened that you had an athlete that didn't meet the expectations of the combine? If so, how did you handle it?
One time, and I don't like speaking on it. He passed away a couple years ago, but the problem that I had is that I wasn't honest with him and I wasn't honest with his agent. So now, like, one of the guy's agents just walked in right now. I am brutally fucking honest, like, to the point of might hurt your feelings, because if I'm not, then something goes wrong. It's like, well, why didn't you say anything? So I'm brutally honest with everybody at every point of it. You're on track, you're off track, you're really far away, you're really close. Just to be honest, very objective. More feedback is better than no feedback. So I spent a lot of time on that, and since then I haven't missed. So and missing to me is making a projection and being wrong in that projection. So you have to be honest and you have to be very clear about what that projection looks like, or else, it might be how you feel. Like, oh, this guy feels like he could run a 4.2. Well, the guy's a 4.7. It's not going to change with your feelings. So brutal honesty, and then not being afraid to just be an asshole if you need to be on a lot of this stuff, because you're getting 3 different directions of energy from your staff, from the guys, and from the agents. So all 3 people all want the same thing that you want, but you have to manage your emotions around that part, or else it's going to eat you alive. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing that I learned this year, is that you won't miss if you just communicate to everybody where it's at.
Cool. I think you can pick up at Sam now.
Sam.
Unless you've got time to hit a couple more.
Sam said, do you use a particular app or program or method for the video recordings to assess things like FVP? For FVP, that's completely different. We just use the 1080 for that. For ground time, air time, stride lane, start frequency, we use view motion every time. Tristan, training with time constraints. How much time would you devote to sprint mechanics, technical skills? I did 0 A series this year. I did dribbles once a week. I did almost no technical drilling at all. Almost 0 coaching when it came to like technical stuff. The coaching happened in the meeting, and it happened after the day. We would spend time going through video. That was it. Yeah, the warm up is the most important part, Miles. So I have warm up cards for every guy. We spend 8 weeks dialing in the perfect warm up, and it changes every year. It's depending on the guys that I have, and it changes. So one thing that I know now that every guy needs, I didn't know before, they need a 90 to 95% exposure. So you have to build to a 90%, and then you got to surpass that to a 95 for them to run 4.3. It's just non-negotiable. But yeah, they memorize it.
All right. Cool, Les. I know you got a ton to do, man. You got a million things going on. There's no more questions in the chat right now. Anything else that you want to hit?
No, that's it. We're all good.
All right. Cool, man. Thanks for taking the time. We'll send the recording out to everybody. Shout out to Les, of course, for taking the time. Shout out to Output for sponsoring this webinar too. Shout out to Speed Labs. If you want to learn more about that, hit us up. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.